The July 2019 meeting of the City of Scranton Zoning Hearing Board will now come to order. Will the secretary please take roll?
Ms. Newcomb?
Here.
Mr. Palmetessa?
Here.
Mr. Marks?
Here.
Mr. Gattens?
Here.
Mr. Chairman?
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. In accordance with the Pennsylvania State Sunshine Law, this board shall render its decision on each case either at the end of each hearing or within 45 days of the hearing. If you are to give testimony in a case, please come to the podium, raise your right hand, and wait to be sworn in. After being sworn in, state your name and address and proceed with your testimony. Also, anyone giving testimony who does not become a party to the case may obtain a written decision from the zoning office. I also have two announcements of law. If you are granted a variance or a special exception, you must wait 30 days from the date of our decision to obtain the necessary permits to start work. However, you may obtain a permit sooner by signing a waiver that any work done during that 30-day period is at your own risk. A favorable decision by this zoning board shall expire 12 months from the date of said authorization in accordance with Section 111I of the zoning ordinance. If you fail to obtain the necessary permits or do not comply with any or all conditions of said authorization, you must seek an extension. Is there any remarks?
I, of course, have some remarks. First, I just want this on record about the Lips Department seems to be crumbling. We have a lot of things going on in the city that aren't being taken care of, and this is my second Lips Department that I've worked under on the zoning board since, I've been on since 2011, so this is my second one. In the past, if someone had a problem with the building, if they were out of code, you'd call them, they'd be right there. Now we have restaurants running that don't even have any running water or electricity, and when people call the Lips Department and the response is, I don't have anyone to send out there, that is not an acceptable response. It's dangerous, and it's also against code. That's it for that. And also we have number one, Dennis Rutkowitz's application still no plan for his 3 buildings, his 3 units. Still don't know if he paid the fee. And also number 6 does not have a plan, so I hope that number 6 has a plan. I'm inclined to abstain from any vote because it would be an unfair vote if I were to vote without a plan. That's all I have.
Don, do we have an updated application that shows that the fee was paid?
The fee was paid.
Okay, thank you.
Does he have a plan? Because last month he did not have one either.
We'll find out.
Yep. Let's find
Do you
out.
have a plan? You can shake your
We'll
head.
talk to him when we get him up here, right?
He's number 1? He's number 1.
Can we attest in the verifications of postings, Mr. King?
Yes. For the record, I have a sworn affidavit, and I did post each of the properties.
Okay. Would you call the first case, please?
The first case is number 1, Dennis Rodowitz, 1413-15 North Sumner, seeking a variance in order to reopen vacant address as a 3-unit building in an R2 zone.
Good evening, Board. I'm Attorney Kevin Smith here on behalf of Dennis. He may look familiar because he was here recently, a couple months ago, on this similar variance request. On the 1415 North Sumner Ave, he was here requesting a 4-unit variance, and he was denied. So we're here back requesting a 3-unit for the property. Now, just a little bit of background for the property. It operated as a 4-unit for many, many years. In 2008, when Jerry Chazen, who's here, purchased the property, it was a 4-unit, and Jerry continued to use it as a 4-unit. He actually put $65,000 into the property over the past few years, but Jerry made a mistake. He basically entered into at least a purchase agreement with the wrong person, and she basically let the property go, lost the tenants, and actually the heat stopped working in the property, and it became condemned. And now we lost a non-conforming use because it was condemned over a certain period of time, and hence we lost it. So enter Dennis into the picture. He wants to purchase the property and rent it out, and he's here willing to have it as a 3-unit. Dennis owns 6 other properties in the city of Scranton. And before this variance request by Dennis, you probably never even heard of him because he runs his properties well. He never had any issues with the city, pays his taxes, puts in the right tenants, and is not a problem at all. He's also planning on investing $40,000 into the property if this 3-unit variance is granted. We have the sufficient park, well, there's enough parking for 4 stalls on the off-street parking. There's a lot next to it, to the property. But Dennis is even willing to go further and put into his leases that each tenant can only have 1 stall per unit, so we would really only need 3 parking stalls. But again, 4 would be sufficient there. Now, 4.5 is required under the zoning ordinance, so we would request a special exception or variance for the reduced parking of half a stall on the 3 units.
Can I interrupt you? Do you have a drawing? Do you have a drawing that we can see? Because this has been for us before, and at the time it came, just for clarity on your part, because you weren't here the last time, we offered him 3. He turned it down. So, I mean, this falls back on him. He should have took it the night we offered it to him, the first time he was here.
Well,
But I want to see parking, because your parking plan, I'm hearing now, has changed from what was offered to us before, and we don't have a drawing to look at.
Sure, may I approach? Okay. So,
I mean, we've asked him for parking plans here multiple
Did you
times.
come in- did you-
I don't know why we're...
People who just walked in, did you try the second door? People who just walked in? Hello? They're not hearing me. They need to know that.
The problem we're having, when Dennis was here the first time, we asked him for a detailed parking plan, like we asked everyone else that's sitting in this audience tonight for a parking plan. And I know you came back last week, or last month, and your application wasn't complete. I am not voting on this as a parking plan, because what you just said is changed from the testimony the first time here. So I'm speaking for myself, not the rest of the board. For me to vote on this tonight, I want a detailed parking plan, what he's going to park there.
You're not speaking, I just testified that no parking plan is abstention for me because it's not a fair vote. We don't have anything to go on. So it's up to him if he wants to come back again or risk.
I thought that you guys were going to get this in order when you postponed the last meeting, at the last meeting.
yeah, that's what we did.
Well, what does your client want to do?
We'll request a continuance to get a formal parking plan.
Thank you.
It's not like we want this to get drawn out thing, you know what I mean? It's
Oh, I understand.
so that we can see what's going to happen. And if he's going to convert that from 4 apartments to 3 apartments, I want to see it broken down. That's all, that's simple. Okay. So are you requesting a...
Yes, we formally request a continuance.
We have to take a vote on that.
Take a
correct?
vote for the continuance.
I'll make a motion to entertain the continuance to next month.
It's been moved and seconded, so.
Ms. Newcomb?
I'm going to say no on the continuance, only because this is not his first time being asked for this.
Mr. Palmetessa?
Yes.
Mr. Marks?
Yes.
Mr. Gattens?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry, yes, your
you.
continuance is granted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Listen, make sure you have a good parking plan and them apartments broken down to 3 apartments, okay? Thank you.
Can we please call the next case, please?
Demetrio Madden, doing business as DMC Auto Repair Corp., applicant seeking variance to open a used car dealership located at 501 North Kaiser Avenue, CN Zone.
Good evening. Attorney Kurt Leinert on behalf of Mr. Madrid, and I believe we were here last month as well. The property had not been posted. I believe that that has been accomplished, as well as the board had wanted a site plan, which we provided at the last hearing. If I can approach, I also have pictures for everybody.
Sure. Thank you.
And if I may, Mr. Madrid is here seeking a variance. 2 points before I begin. Number one, I think on the list, he is listed as Madind, or it's M-A-R-D-R-I-D is his actual last name. And on the application, it just has it as, I think it's MDC or DMC Auto Repair. It's actually Auto Repair and Sales. The N Sales was not part of the listing on there. Other than that, my client is seeking a variance. At this point in time, the property is owned by Michael Stefko. My client has a lease-to-own agreement with Mr. Stefko. The property has been, I will say for the majority of its life, it has been an auto sales. Most recently, it was Cronin's Auto Sales. After that, it was Ferry's Pizza for a period of time. It is now vacant. Prior to Cronin's, it was an auto sales. I think back in the 70s or 80s, it might have been a restaurant. The zoning of the area is a CN2 zone. The majority of the properties in the area are commercial, and it seems as if a vast majority of them are also auto sales, as I've reviewed it and looked at it. So you know, my client has provided the photographs and the site plan. There would be enough parking for people to come and view the vehicles that are for sale. If he were to have a full lot and utilize the front and the back, it would hold up to 40 cars. I don't believe my client's intention is ever to have that many cars, but the ability is there to put that many cars on display for sale. It has access from Kaiser Avenue. You can actually travel around the building. The only repair that he would have to make to it is the front steps, which he plans on doing would be to add a handicap accessible ramp. We are not going to alter the lighting. We are not going to alter the building at this point in time. He has a sign already ready to go from Fast Signs, which they have not erected. It's just going to go where the previous sign was. And again, if you look at the rules of a variance, we are just trying to do what is the least restrictive means of operation, which that's what it's been throughout the period of the life, is it's been a car lot. I can also tell the board, my client is originally from New York. However, he and his wife just purchased a property in Fawnwood. Anecdotally, it is Mr. Hickey's former property that I believe at one point he may have been the solicitor for this board, but they have purchased that as of April. They will be residing there. His plan is to, in addition to the auto sales, is to move his auto repair business from New York to here, obviously somewhere else. There will not be any work performed on the premises. There will not be any auto repairs, body work, anything of that nature. It will strictly be auto sales at this point. He has joined the Pennsylvania Auto Dealers Association already. The hours of operation would be your regular business hours, 9 to 5, 9 to 6. He does not plan on being open on Sundays. Additionally, he has applied for a small business loan, but I believe he has to be up and running for 2 years before he will be able to utilize that. But again, I mean, this is exactly what we're trying to do in this area. Is he's willing to come here, move his family here. He's already invested in the community. He wants to bring his business here, and we're asking the board at this point to grant the variance.
I have a couple issues with this plan here that he has. First of all, if you're gonna put cars all over the inside of this lot, there's no way you're gonna be able to drive around the back of that building. I was curious to a few of these measurements, so I brought along a tape measure with me. One measurement is off by 9 feet.
9 feet?
9 feet. You claim to have it as 30 feet from the building to the next property up, physically measured with a 25-foot tape measure, come up with 20 feet 9 inches. You're not gonna be able to put cars on that side of the lot and drive past them. Not gonna happen.
If I may, to answer your question, my client's intention is to put the cars out on the Kaiser Avenue side. What I'm saying is that if he utilized the entire lot, front, back, and side, there would be that amount, but at no point does he intend to do that. I believe that the side you're talking about is where the access to Kaiser Avenue would be.
Right.
That would be the entrance for patrons, and then they could park either on the side or in the back, which is what I understand historically was done when it was Cronin's Auto Sales and when it was the pizza shop. But I don't believe he has plans of putting cars over there for display.
Well, all he has is cars drawn here, so I don't know what, like.
And I
what the deal
apologize,
is
that would
with
be
the-
for parking.
Right. You know you're gonna need a buffer on both sides, right?
Yes, sir.
I think that we're creating, by granting this, a hazard, a safety hazard. Kaiser Avenue, people do not pay attention whatsoever coming down that road. God forbid somebody back out onto Kaiser Avenue from this lot, you're backing into a car going 50 miles an hour. It's gonna be a big issue. And we had the same issue with other car lots along Kaiser Avenue, and that's why they were denied for the very same reason. There's not a safe way of coming back out onto Kaiser, let alone making a left if you're going up Kaiser to pull into the place.
Not only that, but the traffic, like, amount of traffic. I'm looking at this picture here, where you could see a greenhouse and an intersection. That's the intersection I use to get to my house, and I've sometimes backed up, way back up, waiting, and next door to him is a car lot. There's a junkyard. We've already approved a car lot a little bit further down in the 500 block. We have issues with car lots not complying with what they come to the zoning board and ask for the variance for. So that's something also he needs to keep in mind. You said he has 40, but he might not use them. Pretty much every single car lot that we've ever approved has had this issue except for one. And that's pretty close to, that's catty corner, that's also on Kaiser Avenue on the opposite side of the street.
With all due respect to the board, this is the first time my client has come here, so to stereotype him with all other car lots and what they do, I think is unfair to him. He's asking to allow you the opportunity to do what that business has been, and to say that the guy a mile down the road doesn't comply with the zoning, Mr. Madrid has done nothing to give you
Yeah, well,
that
with all due
indication.
respect, everyone has said that. Everyone has come to the board and said, I'm going to comply, and it's not a stereotype, it's just what we see based on experience on this board.
And again, my understanding of the zoning law is just because somebody didn't comply with what you gave them, doesn't give the board the authority to deny him.
No, that's not the reason to vote no, but
And again,
he said traffic.
What I'm
That's a
looking
good
at is
reason.
what the law of a variance is. He's provided the information. Again, that's like saying that a landlord didn't follow, so nobody else can open a rental property in the city. It's outside the law of zoning, and if that's what the decision is based on, if it's a negative decision, that's an improper decision. But again, my point is, you have a gentleman who's
Don't make
moved-
that assumption, okay?
But
I know.
I agree, sir, but my client, as I just said, has moved his family here. He's invested, he's bought a house, he's going to pay taxes. He's going to start a business. He's hoping to start a second business. I mean, in this day and age, that's what we want in this community, and he's here saying, I'll do whatever it is you want him to do. I believe, to answer your previous question, is that the plan is to have the people actually drive around the building. And again, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say that Kaiser Avenue is an easy road to pull out onto. But anyone who would back out of the lot onto Kaiser Avenue, frankly, is insane and shouldn't do it. But the plan is to have the people drive around and go out in a normal direction, so.
Let's get back to this then.
Sure.
Okay. Does he intend on paving the area behind the building on the left side of the building, looking at the building? Or do you plan on paving that whole lot in the rear of the building?
He wasn't planning on it.
So to go around that building, you're going to go through grass in the back and grass on the left-hand side?
Yes, sir.
Really?
And again, that's what was done in the past. and-
Well, just like you said, I mean, there's certain things that were done in the past and statements like that, but
I would think we would make that a requirement to be paved.
Yeah.
And I think if, before we would vote, we would limit the amount of cars that would be on this lot.
Can I ask, from a cost-effective basis, would gravel suffice?
Well, we have an expert here when it comes to that, Mr. King, on that, this setup here. If we were to put a stipulation on this, that the rear of the building would have to be paved, say 25, well, and just throwing this number, 25 feet from the rear of the building, and then the driveway on the left-hand side, is gravel unacceptable?
Yeah, section 603E of the ordinance requires that vehicle sales display areas shall be graded and adequately drained to prevent erosion, water across that, and I believe there's a requirement that they be paved.
Well, we'll go back to a subject,
Yeah.
the other ones that we did approve in Kaiser Avenue, the requirement was to pave them.
Okay.
The in and out driveway and the parking areas for customers has to be paved.
Correct.
The display area for the cars can have gravel.
Correct. My concern is if, from the attorney's testimony, that they're going to enter from the right side of the building, looking at the building, go around the building, come out the other side. I just feel if that's what's going to happen, that should be a paved area at that point instead of going through mud.
So I know, Mr. Gattens, we're talking about when he goes around the building and comes down the right side, that area would need to be either gravelled or paved.
Looking at the building, maybe I'm making an assumption that's wrong. Looking at the building, the entrance on the right-hand side, I assumed that he was saying they'd go around the building from that right side.
Yes, sir.
And come out looking at the building left side.
Right.
So the left side of the building isn't paved, it's grass.
And I think the rear might need to be extended a little bit. Okay. And my client said he would be willing, if the board would allow gravel, he could bear the expense of gravel. I don't know what the cost of paving that
Well,
area would be.
your piece in the air is already paved, so where the cars are going to be, that's, according to Mr. Pinatar, that area can be, gravel.
Yes, sir.
But the area where they're going to drive, we're going to require that be paved.
Sure.
What about arrows?
And where the customer parking is in the rear, because that's where the customer, there's no customer parking in the front. The customer parking has to be in the rear, is that correct?
My understanding is that the cars for sale would be placed in the front. The customers would park on the right-hand side.
Well, he just said that there's only 21 feet on the right-hand side. There's no way for customer parking and to drive to the back of that
Right.
building.
Yeah.
We can
You
move
put a
them.
4-foot buffer there, you're down to 17 feet.
We'll move them to the back.
What about arrows? Would you
I couldn't
be,
hear, I'm sorry. I couldn't hear.
He said he would agree that we have to park the customers in the back.
would you agree to paint arrows on the pavement? So
Telling
that-
them how to go through.
Telling them to go around?
Sure.
I mean,
You're gonna get it.
Absolutely.
not a guarantee that people are going to pay attention, but at least, you have arrows are on the ground.
Whatever it takes.
Right.
All right, so for clarity, we're going to come back again. The area behind the building, I know he has a large lot going behind it, so he's going to have to put a 13-foot driveway, if I'm not mistaken, for the cars to go around the building. Then he's going to have to put an additional area in the back for parking. So we're looking at 18, 4, 22, roughly about a 35-foot, 36-foot from the building back area that's going to have to be paved. Okay.
If he's going to utilize it as parking, he doesn't have to pave the entire lot, just what
just
He would
roughly
use as a
that, about
parking area.
35, we'll get
Sure.
the exact numbers, but I'm going to come in about 35, 37 feet from the
Okay.
building back. Enough for the driveway and enough for the parking.
Then how many cars do you think you're gonna be able to put in the front of that place to sell?
Again, in the front, I believe, from what I've seen in the past, maybe 8 or 10. I don't think there's a lot of area, especially with having people drive around. It's not a gigantic number, I can tell you that.
Right.
I want to say 10 or less.
How wide is the entrance driveway? Bob, maybe you measured, Bob, do you know?
I didn't measure. I measured to the road from the building, I measured from the right to the building to the end of the property. The back of the property was like 67 feet, 2 inches, so I gave him the benefit of the
Okay.
doubt, he wrote 68 feet. Where it was very small is the right side of that building. 20 feet, 9 inches. So you put a buffer right there, 4 foot, you're down to 17 foot. You make that an entrance, nothing else can go there, nothing.
Understood.
Because the driveway, if I'm correct, is 13 feet wide, so with the buffer, you're down to 7 feet, or 17 feet some. But we're still looking at,
Dan, do you know exactly how many spots he's going to need for customer and employees, or?
Needs one spot for every 15 vehicles, plus one spot for each employee.
how many employees we're looking at?
Right now, 1.
They really need 2 spots, 3 spots.
I know it's been asked, you've answered, but just so I could hear it again, how many total cars we're looking to sell on the property?
If he utilized all of the space, and again, obviously that was pre-parking on the right side, he had figured that he could probably at any given time have 40 cars for sale. That would be using the right side as customer parking
And that's using the rear of the building?
and using the rear, but obviously if the rear is now going to become the parking area, I'd say
He's got 68.
probably 25 front and back. But again, there's no intention to have that many cars at any given time, so.
And at no time there will be repairs here.
There will not,
You don't have it, there's just no room for it.
and I don't even think there's a garage there that it could be done. Again, my client's plan is that he has an auto repair business in New York. He will eventually bring that here and find us property in the community and then own 2 businesses, so.
So let's go for clarity again. Let's assume he's not going to put the additional cars in the back.
Sure.
Okay, so let's take the back right out. It's going to be a driveway and parking for customers. At that point, how many cars will be on that lot to sell?
If we're just using the front and the
Just
right.
using the front, because that's basically what you're telling us is going to happen. He has no plans to use the back, so.
Yeah, it's probably 10, maximum 15, but I don't know if you could even, I would say no more than 15, how's that?
You understand why I'm trying to pin you down?
Absolutely.
Because the testimony is just a little bit vague, like, he may not, or he may, you know, what I mean, it's leaving that window open that we got to watch for.
No, and in all candor, I want to inform the board how much space there is, but obviously if he has 40 cars on the lot for sale, then he's doing quite well, but I don't think his intention is that he would ever have that many cars for sale.
But he didn't try to inform us on the correct measurements of the property. If we didn't measure that, we'd be under the assumption that he has that space.
And again, I think that was an error on his measuring, so I apologize for that.
The board can limit the number of cars also. The board can limit the number of cars. You have that right.
Sure.
Number one, the buffer is a must. The pavement is a must. We're going to give you a variance for 10 cars. If you want to exceed that, should the business take off like you anticipate, and we will, we'll have to go back and get a variance for additional cars.
Can I just have 1 second?
Dan, while they're discussing that, is it 13 feet for a driveway?
Yes,
Okay,
for the aisle.
Then he's going to need an additional 18 feet for parking cars in the back as well, off of that 13 feet.
Yeah, and he's got 68 back there, so he has plenty.
So we're looking at
There's plenty of room for the parking
31.
back
So I
there.
mean, in our stipulation, we're going to have to put on that area in the back, say a minimum of 31 feet has to be paved for, because someone's going for customer parking back there.
Sure, you can do that.
Yep. All right, so as far as, in addition to what Bob said there, oh, wait, he's done there.
The ordinance does say that parking area is up to you guys. It could be paved or it could be gravel. So that you guys.
Is it after so many spots, Dan?
That's, if you're bordering a residence, then it changes the whole thing, but he's not bordering any residence here.
So he still has to pave that driveway going around?
Definitely has to pave the driveway going around, yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Palmetessa, just to answer the question, obviously the board has to vote, but my client would be agreeable to those stipulations if the variance is granted with those stipulations.
Yeah, we're going to add the paving onto it as well in the back.
I thought you did say, didn't you say the paving as well? Yes. I think he did.
Well, I want to get exact measurements.
Sure.
In there, so it's on the record. I talked over at the board here, we're going to require that the driveway going around the building, which is 13 feet required, be paved, as well as going back an additional, off that. So in other words, 31 feet minimum behind the building is to be paved. And that's for the customer parking in the rear of the building, because you have no customer parking at all.
No, the only reason I'm asking, I believe the driveway is already paved entering the property.
Entered, I'm talking about from the rear of the property all the way around, down the left side.
He doesn't have to resurface the existing blacktop, is it?
No,
Okay.
no.
That's the way I understood it, I apologize.
That's okay, I'd rather get it clear here, you know, and then, instead of having Don chasing you around a month from now. So the rear of the property, from the building back 31 feet, all right? I don't know if there's a porch on the rear of that building, I didn't notice right there. Okay. So, I mean, I'd take it 33 feet, because you don't want to hit the building. So the rear, and down the left side, looking at the property, to take that, put that driveway in and take them back out to the front, will be paved as well.
And it has to be paved gravel. Gravel won't suffice, it has to be blacktop?
On the driveway part, yes.
But the parking area can be gravel?
Well, it can be, but we're asking that he pave it.
Okay,
Right.
understood.
Right? 10 cars, if it takes off like he hopes and we hope for.
We'll come back and ask for
So
more.
just
Back for more vehicles.
if you can approach for 1 second, so we'll just show you. That your picture, that's the rear of the building?
Yes, sir.
So this whole area back here, 31 feet, 32 feet up.
Not clear to the fence now.
No.
Right.
Just 31 off the back.
And then this, you can see the grass go up so far to where that car is parked. So pave until it meets that pavement up front. Sure.
So we have to pave the street. You have the 4-foot buffers right around. I mean, I don't know what the 4-foot buffer in the back of that property is gonna do to going to beautify it, as far as I'm concerned.
I think we can probably get 31 feet and then still have
Plenty.
more than enough grass.
I think,
In the back.
as they said, 68 feet, so you have a lot to spare.
With a 10-car maximum right now.
Yes, sir.
All right, I make a motion.
Hold on.
We got to open it up to the public.
Is there anybody in the audience like to give testimony on this case? There is not?
Okay, I make a motion now with the stipulations that were stated.
Second.
Ms. Newcomb?
I'm going to have to say no, because I want to clarify that it doesn't have anything to do with the past garages, but I don't think that another car lot on this block of Kaiser Avenue is a good fit for the neighborhood.
Mr. Palmetessa?
Yes.
Mr. Marks?
Yes.
Mr. Gattens?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, vote of 4-1, you've been granted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Appreciate you working with us.
Can we please call the next case?
Barletta Outdoor Media LLC seeking a variance to install a new 300-square-foot off-premise sign or billboard at 319-321 North Main Avenue with CN Zone.
Good evening. My name is Attorney Ryan Barrett. I'm here on behalf of Robert Barletta and his company, Barletta Outdoor Media. Again, requesting a zoning variance for 319, 321 North Main Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania. And for the record, and in full disclosure, Attorney Penatar is my next-door neighbor.
I won't vote.
So, a quick procedural note, Mr. Barletta entered into a contract with the building owner, Sergio Alahade. Is that correct? Alahad, on May 8th, in order to put up a sign on the face of the building, which does not face North Main, it faces Jay's Commons. On May 31st, Mr. Barletta applied for a permit to do that. On June 6th, that permit was denied because the zone was a CN. On June 19th, Mr. Barletta applied to this board for a variance, which was why we're here today. So effectively, what Mr. Barletta is seeking to do is put up a 15 by 20 vinyl sign on the side of the building. And it's attached with grommets, which are bolted through the building. So effectively, it sits flush. It's not a freestanding sign or doesn't have catwalks or any other type of support structure. It's essentially a wall sign on the side of the building. And this is a highly commercial neighborhood. It's more commercial than it is neighborhood. And there's a stoplight there. There's a number of businesses, and all we're asking for is some common sense decision-making on this, allowing Mr. Barletta to install this sign. I think the nearest residence is 387 feet away, and there's a tree in front of it. There's also numerous other billboards, and directly across the street, I think there's a Lamar billboard, which is a digital billboard. So there has been precedent for having billboards and variances granted in this neighborhood. And again, all we're requesting is some common sense decision-making here, allowing Mr. Barletta to put up the sign.
Well, I think any decision that the board gives is a common sense decision, so I take a little...
I should not have... Duly noted.
Okay, so you're saying that there's the nearest residence is in the rear of that building. There's houses right behind that building, so it's within the 250 feet. There's an apartment house right behind it, because when the owner of that building came before us, there was concern there because of the trash pickup and everything, so we're all very familiar with that building.
Don't
and
most
what's
people live
behind
in
it.
the building? Isn't it a residential building? Or it was at one point?
Well, no, there's residence houses behind, right behind the building.
But what's in the building?
Currently, it was just rehab.
Yeah,
And there are commercial space, 2 commercial units on the ground floor. There's going to be residential, I think, 2 or 3 apartment buildings on the 2nd or 3rd floors.
Yeah.
But in the rear of the building, this, and I don't know if you have a rendering of attached.
Should be attached to your application.
Bob, isn't there an ordinance that 2 billboards can't face the same direction?
And they also can't be a certain feet away from one another.
Right.
But in regards to the residential buildings that are, you know, this billboard would not be facing or distracting, or they wouldn't be seeing this, this sign. It's a relatively inobtrusive sign in regards to any residential.
Well, I'm just looking at our ordinance, and the ordinance says within 250 feet. It doesn't say if they're intrusive or anything. It changes if the sign is lit up, but our ordinance, and it's under 712A, under setbacks, is 712A, 250 feet from the residential lot line. So,
Well, then, again, for the same reasons, I'd ask for a variance.
And
What
Mr.
about-
Gattens, just for a point of clarity, the definition of a residential lot line contains an existing single-family detached dwelling, single-family semi-detached dwelling, or townhouse on a lot of less than 8 acres.
and correct, right behind there is a single home, and there's actually two homes right behind there. There's a single home and a
In the
duplex.
garage, 2 homes in a garage back there.
So,
And what's the,
what's your request for the variance then? Like,
Well, it'd be a zoning variance in order to put up this sign. I mean, it's,
what I'm asking you...
What's the variance,
What's the precedence that's going to set for you to request that variance? What hardship are you claiming that is...
well, this is designated as a CN area, commercial neighborhood, and there are exceptions which allow that, you know, I think it's 150 feet within the intersections of 81 and North Main, and 150 feet within the intersection of the Expressway and North Main.
Right.
And what that does is, it precludes it's effectively spot zoning, which is somewhat frowned upon. I think Mr. Barletta should be entitled to that same exception here. Again, this is effectively a wall sign. It's not a freestanding, there's no structure to it, it's flush with the wall.
But it's a billboard.
Excuse me?
But it's a billboard.
Correct.
what's the ordinance, Mr. King, on how far away billboards are allowed to be? And does it apply if one's lit and one's not
Well,
lit?
the ordinance is very specific. In the CN zone, both of the following conditions must be met. All portions of the sign are within 150 feet of the existing right-of-way of Interstate 81, the existing right-of-way of the North Scranton Expressway north of the intersection of North Main Avenue, or any IL or IG zone, which doesn't apply here, and number 2, the sign does not abut and does not face East or West Market Street, North or South Kaiser Avenue, or the North Scranton Expressway south of North Main Avenue. So the ordinance was written very specific as to where off-premise signs were allowed.
Or allowed?
Are allowed, yes.
Well, the North Main Avenue is listed
No,
on
that's...
that.
North Main Avenue is not there.
So that's why they're here. Yeah,
They
so
they were
it's not allowed.
basically it was set to be along Interstate 81 or the expressway north of Main Avenue.
How about with Lamar being across the street? Is there any stipulations with that sign being across the street?
I'm not aware.
I know we ran
There is
into
a
this
sign
bef-
there. I don't know how long it's been there. I don't know if they received the variance or if it was a non-conforming sign that was there prior to the ordinance.
Well, it's been there at
Well,
least
if we
43
look
years.
at, Don, if we look at 712F, under spacing on 4.
Right.
4. So we have both signs facing north on Main Avenue. So if you're traveling south to Main Avenue, you're looking at, if this sign was to go through both ends, does that fall within the 400 feet? Am I reading it correctly?
Off-premise sign shall be separated by 4 from the faces on the same side of the street. I think that one is on the other side of the street, so I think we interpreted that before, that if it was on the opposite side of the street, that didn't count for the spacing.
But if I'm not mistaken, the one we approved last time, we just came to the question on Wyoming Avenue, they were facing different directions.
Correct.
These are facing the same way.
But I think those ones were on the same side of the,
Yeah.
they were
Has
on the
to-
same side of the street.
Has to be both, same side of the street and facing the same
Okay.
direction.
Yeah, it is confusing.
Anything else, guys?
And Mr. Gattens, to address your, the residences, Mr. Barletta informed me that he did talk to one Harry Granville who owns those properties, and this is obviously hearsay, but that he had no objection to it, and he was informed that this was going to take place tonight, just so that you are aware that Mr.
Is he here?
He is not here, but he was aware.
And if there's a lawyer sitting in that chair right now, what would they be saying? He's not here.
That's correct, but there was
All
a
right.
public notice.
All right, thank you.
Is there anybody else from the audience that wants to give testimony in this case? Okay, there is not.
Make a motion?
I'll second it.
Motion made, seconded. Ms. Newcomb?
Yes.
Mr. Palmetessa?
Yes.
Mr. Marks?
Yes.
Mr. Gattens?
No,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, a vote of 4 to 1, you've been granted.
good luck.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, guys.
I believe number 4 has been continued, is that correct?
That's correct.
So if anybody's here for number 4, they're going to be back next month
Yes.
for Onion Street. Okay, we call number 5, please?
Number 5, 136 South 7th Street LLC appeals determination of zoning officer that the 4-unit use of the building has been abandoned pursuant to 806E1 and/or in the alternative seeks a variance to reopen the building as a 4-unit building at 325 Prospect Avenue, R2 zone.
Good evening. I'm Attorney Tony Loma. I represent the applicant, 136 South 7th Street LLC. I have with me tonight Mrs. Gruber, who is the sole member of the LLC. I will try to be brief and quick. I know you have Bill Jones after me for a while, so maybe...
And Tony, we all know he's long-winded, so.
We have 4 pictures. And this one is, you guys probably have this.
Okay.
The question is, this was we believe, always a 4-unit dwelling. Mrs. Gruber purchased it from a bank through a sheriff's sale. The sheriff's sale, there's a timeline there what happened. In 2011, Wells Fargo Bank filed a mortgage foreclosure against Colleen Gilroy, and I think she was the trustee or the executrix of the parents had passed away. In 2017, Wells Fargo assigned the mortgage to U.S. Bank, and in 2018, the property was sold at sheriff's sale. It wasn't until, and then November of 2018, my client, 136 South 7th Street, entered into an agreement of sale with the bank for the purchase. And then finally, the sheriff deed came on March 21st of 2019. It took over 13 months, and Dan probably knows the experience with sheriff sales for the bank to get a deed, for the sheriff to get a deed to the bank. There was a lengthy delay there. And then Mrs. Gruber's firm, or LLC, within 2 weeks later purchased the property from the bank after the bank got the sheriff's deed. If you look at, I have supplied you all with the listing. It was listed on the first page, a multifamily. That's the property type, that's it right on the top. And then if you go down towards the middle of the page, public remarks, It was a home with a 4 large units, 2-car detached garage. If you go to the second page, on the top right, it says that style type, built as apartment. It was built as 4 apartments from day one. And then it also gives in the middle of the page, the square footage of all the apartments, which meets the zoning ordinance. There's a 1,073 square foot unit with 3 bedrooms, a 720 square foot unit with 2 bedrooms, a 660 square foot unit with 2 bedrooms, and another 720 square foot unit with 2 bedrooms. There is currently 4 electric meters there, always was. I supplied a picture that was from Google Maps of 2017, shows the 4 meters. So it was our belief it was always a 4-unit dwelling.
So the only thing you didn't supply us
Is a
was
parking
your
plan.
parking plan.
The parking, I was gonna get, I'm sorry, that's where the issue, we believe it was never abandoned. And if you want to get into the parking now, I will. That behind the unit, behind the property in the alley, there's a 2-car garage. And next to that is a spot for 1 car. There's only 3 off-street parking spots possible. There's no other way. The lot's 40 by 140. The front, the house takes the whole 40-foot width. It goes 140 feet in depth. And in the rear, the 2-car garage, and then next to the 2-car garage, there's a fence, can be moved, and there'll be 1 additional spot. The parking is on the side street, River Street. There is not a house along River Street until you get to the back near the rear of the alley. At the rear, so my client would have 40 feet on-street parking in front of her house. At the corner of River and Prospect, there's another 40 feet because there's no house there. And then going up River Street, there's another 100 feet of no house there. I've lived in Southside, I've driven by there many times. There is maybe 1 car on River Street there. There is no homes for people to park, reason for people to park, and there's sufficient on-street parking, but we have the maximum that we'd be able to do is 3 spots. Again, we believe it was never abandoned under the TKO case in Latrobe Speedway. Financial conditions is not abandonment. It showed how long from the sheriff's sale. Mortgage foreclosure was filed in 2011, and it wasn't until 2019 that there was a sheriff's deed to the bank, and my client closed within 2 weeks after that.
So wait, did you say 2011?
That's when the date, that's on my timeline, that's when the bank foreclosed on the property.
And nobody...
I'm sorry, that's when the bank filed their complaint of mortgage foreclosure.
And there was nobody living in the house that entire, from 2011 till 2019?
No, I think people were living there before the owners got kicked out, or before the sheriff.
So how long before the owners got kicked out and and your client bought the property? How much of a time lapse there?
That, I don't know. But again, financial conditions are not, according to the TKO case and the Latrobe Speedway, financial burdens, anything that's out of the owner's control, and they say specifically financial issues. And obviously the prior owners had financial issues because there was a mortgage foreclosure action filed.
When it was on the market and you were able to view it, were there
Excuse
people?
me?
When it was on the market and you were able to go there for a showing, was there people occupying the home or was it vacant?
I don't believe, well, did you ever see the inside of the unit before you purchased it? Or how far before you purchased it?
We're gonna have to get her sworn in. You have to swear her in.
Do you solemnly swear to... I'm sorry, do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Name and address, please.
Mady Gruber, 59 Franklin Street, Morristown, New Jersey.
What was, Mr. Newcomb, you had a question?
No,
No, he wanted to know if he viewed the inside of the house while it was listed.
I saw the house a couple times.
When did you see the house? At what point before we closed on it?
I don't remember exactly. I would say about 3-4 months before.
Was anybody living in it at the time?
No, there was no one there.
And that probably goes to the fact that
I used,
So it wasn't condemned.
the sheriff, it was purchased at the bank purchased it at the sheriff's sale. On February 6th of 2018, and then because it took a year and 13 months for the sheriff to issue the deed, I'm assuming when the bank purchased it at the sheriff's sale, any tenants in there were required to leave.
Just to try to make it a little easier to understand, our ordinance talks about a presumption of abandonment if it's vacant for 6 months or more, or 12 months in any 2-year period. Obviously, this property was vacant for more than the 6 months. That's the presumption of abandonment. It's a rebuttable presumption, and I believe that's what Attorney Loma is trying to show, that the presumption of abandonment should be overturned because of the bank foreclosure taking so much time, which I do that all the time, and it does take a long time. And I know Mr. Marks is familiar with the foreclosure proceeding also. So I think that's his argument, saying that it wasn't an abandoned use, it's still a non-conforming use, and because it's a non-conforming use, it could be used as it was in the past with the parking that was there in the past. Now, if you decide that he did not overcome the presumption of abandonment and it was abandoned, then he has to come for the variance part of it, which is now you can put in your parking requirements, et cetera.
So,
And my
Kind
client,
of a two,
you'd have to come back for that, wouldn't he?
no,
'Cause
he
didn't
applied for
apply
both.
Oh, there it is, yep. okay.
and my client has agreed, even if we're grandfathered in as a existing non-conforming use, she's agreed to put in that additional parking spot, the max that she could do. I mean, she wants to comply with everything, but unfortunately, she's limited on the space on the off-street parking. And even for grandfathering with just a 2-car garage, she will put in that additional
The
parking.
third spot.
And also, I supplied with the board that my client went to the zoning, or to the license and inspections, and did register the property, and I submitted the rental unit registration certificate, which they granted for 4 units. So I believe they've already acknowledged that there's 4 units there.
Then why are we here?
I don't know.
This is what I don't get.
We have to decide if Jack's,
the issue of abandonment.
This issue-
Right, but I mean,
Here, excuse me. The funny part is, Mr. Sweeney did not issue an opinion. It came from Mr. Hinton and an email to my client. I don't believe Mr. Sweeney had ever issued any written to my client. She got it from Mr. Hinton in an email, who's the director of LIBS, who also issued the rental registration certificate. So it's a good question, Mr. Gattens, why?
I'm
So we-
baffled on why we're here on this.
so we have to decide if we agree with Pat Hinton's decision or if we disagree. And if we agree with Pat Hinton's decision, he needs his variance. And if we disagree,
Okay, well,
Then you
if
can go on.
if you decide, your decision is whether
if we
the
uphold his,
non-conforming use was abandoned or whether it was not abandoned.
Just for clarity, and I already know the answer, this house was not condemned.
Correct.
correct.
Thank you.
I showed you the pictures of the front.
I
mean,
just wanted it for clarity.
It's not like you're number 1 on the list.
And I normally don't stick my nose in this stuff like this, but I'm familiar with that house since 1964, and it was 4 units at that time, and it remained 4 units to the day Ms. Gilroy moved out of that house. So, I mean, it's been 4 units forever, with the same parking situation, so.
And there's 4 kitchens. I mean, it was built as 4
Yep, I grew up with a friend in that house, and I'm familiar with every apartment in there, so it was a family house, 4 individual family members, like, you know, aunts, uncles, grandparents all lived in that house, so.
So how do we vote, like, to make it easy? Abandoned or not abandoned?
If the-
testimony from the audience.
Oh, yeah, I know,
There
just-
there may be other neighbors out here.
Is there anybody in the audience that'd like to give testimony on this case? There is not.
think everybody's from Green Ridge.
It's not quite all yet. I want to make a motion on the ruling that Jack had given, or Mr. Hinton, whoever gave that ruling. We vote on that first. I'll make a motion on that.
I'll
To
second.
uphold it or deny, or, deny it.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, say that.
So our first vote is going to be
The problem with that is he did two things. He said it was abandoned, but he issued a registration permit for 4 years.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is-
That's like,
So let's just go to the variance.
whatever.
Jeff, Dan, what,
I think we really have to start with the,
Whether it was abandoned or not.
whether the use of, the non-conforming use was
Okay.
abandoned or not.
That's what I was getting. Let's do that.
I think that's where we have to start.
So
So-
if we say that it wasn't abandoned, then we're siding with these, I forgot,
Yes.
attorney.
The applicant.
Okay. I forgot what your last name was.
Oh, Loma.
Okay. So if it was not abandoned, then we find in favor of,
Then they could.
then they get, then they don't need their
Resume the
variance.
4 units, yes.
Then they don't need it, okay.
Right. Then they don't need the variance, right.
Give us 1 minute. No, I was telling him, give us 1 minute.
So Dan, if we go with the abandonment first, and then we go to the, then we end up
And if-
going, if
and
the
if-
abandonment is upheld, then we go
Right.
to the variance.
Correct.
Okay.
So we need a motion on the abandonment issue
Just
first.
clearing up here.
Mr. Chairman, if it helps, on behalf of the city and in light of Mr. Gatton's knowledge of the building and stating that it was always a 4-unit building, the city would have no objection to, the city would say the applicant has overcome the presumption that it was abandoned, that it was always a 4-unit building, and we would accept that it was always a 4-unit building.
Thank you.
That takes the pressure off.
So now,
So we're done.
so if we vote, we
We're
still
done
have to
because
vote
this
on it,
is
right?
Right now, Mr. King is acting zoning officer, so he could issue the permit
Yeah.
without you.
He can issue the what?
Well, I would still ask for the board to vote because the literal terms of the ordinance say if it was vacant for more than 6 months, that ties me, that says to me that it was abandoned. And I think
And it was, he said.
if you accept Mr. Loma's testimony and his client and Mr. Gatton's knowledge of the building and vote to overturn the zoning officer's decision that it was abandoned, the city would not object to that.
So if we vote that it wasn't abandoned, how are we going to be voting on that, Dan?
If you're voting that it was not abandoned, then he gets, it goes back to being 4 units.
So how's the vote going to go down?
So are we voting yes?
Abandoned or not abandoned.
you- did you
Make it
test-
easier.
Good enough. Okay, good, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Yes, yes.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to turn my mic on. So it was vacant for 6
I
months.
know I'm getting old, but I love.
Yeah.
So yes, we're going to overturn it.
Abandoned or not abandoned? Okay. I'll make a motion, we vote.
Second.
Ms. Newcomb?
Abandoned.
Mr. Palmetessa?
Not abandoned.
Mr. Marks?
Not abandoned.
Mr. Gattens?
Not abandoned.
Mr. Chairman?
Not abandoned.
Well, see, now I'm confused
Vote
because
of 4 to 1.
We're good.
You're approved.
We're good.
And my client, as I've committed, she will make that additional parking spot next to the garage, even though she doesn't have to, we want to apply as much as we can.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Good luck with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we please, this ain't number 7, we have one more, Please call case number 6.
Number 6, Backstreet Enterprises LLC seeks special exception pursuant to Section 806C3 to expand the non-conforming use, a tavern, by more than 5% by adding an outside patio and covered bar area, 225 Jackson Street, R1A zone.
Is it 2225 Jackson Street?
Yes,
Okay.
2225
Jackson Street. You have a plan, correct?
Yes.
Okay, 'cause-
A plan?
A parking plan, a whole
Yes.
plan, because there's nothing attached, so I just...
Yes,
Are you an attorney, sir?
I am. I'm Attorney Rick Finucci.
Okay.
Good evening. And I am going to hand out a packet before I give my preliminary remarks.
Yeah, and if there was, we would have been going back and forth, looking at what was what. Yeah. Yeah, that's too short, yeah.
So, good evening, Board. Again, my name is Attorney Rick Finucci, and I represent the applicant and its sole owner and proprietor, Mr. John Zielinski, who's here with me tonight. Just in terms of a brief history of Mr. Zielinski, he and his family are lifelong residents of the city. They live in Westside. He currently lives on Fellow Street. He's also the 18-year-plus owner of JZ Tours, very successful and prominent business that's been going on for some time. In February of this year, Mr. Zielinski entered into a contract with Larry Spadoff, who formerly owned the property at 2225 Jackson Street, also known as Rep's Place, a small tavern located at the end of Jackson Street off of Kaiser Avenue, on the Kaiser Avenue side. And Rep's Place is located right at the dead end where the road stops and the railroad intersects. It's across the street from the ball field. That business had operated as a tavern for at least 28 years that we're aware of. When he entered into the contract in February, the purchase price was $150,000, and he had due diligence provisions, inspections and due diligence that he was entitled to do, which would commit him later on to purchase, and he did that. And part of his due diligence was to investigate whether or not he was required to get any particular zoning permits or anything, because his plan had been from day one not to just take over this legally existing non-conforming use, but to also add a patio in the back and a small tiki bar. And he sought out during his due diligence advice from which is now the former zoning officer, and he submitted plans, he submitted information. It's our understanding that the former zoning officer had actually gone to the property. Mr. Zielinski had communicated with him several times in person and by phone, and it was represented to him verbally that everything was fine, that he would not need zoning, everything was good. He just had to come back with his formal building plans and, submit for building permits. Based on that, the due diligence period expired, we proceeded to close, and he purchased the property. His plan, he borrowed an extra $125,000 from the bank to invest in renovations. As soon as the closing took place in May, he came right down, early May or mid-May, he came right down to the city, submitted his building plans, and waited. Didn't hear anything. Finally, it became public that the zoning officer was no longer here. Mr. Zielinski ended up meeting with Mr. King, who informed him there's been some sort of misunderstanding, because upon his review, we now need to come to, zoning because of the expansion of a non-conforming use. So I just want it known that brief history that Mr. Zielinski would have done this right from day one had he been advised properly. But at any rate, here we are. And what you have in front of you is, a packet that I have is a picture of the front of the place. The second page is a color photograph of basically a tax assessment map, which shows a decent aerial view. The third page is a seating plan, which shows the existing seating, well, what will be the existing seating in the bar. By the way, renovations to the main area are currently underway. He has all the permits from the city. Your UCC inspector has been there. They are there. They're overseeing it. So that's underway. Of course, no work has been done to the back. But you also see the existing floor space area and the new proposed floor area, which is the Tiki Bar alone itself. There was never outside serving at this location. The former owner had lived upstairs, and he had a pool and a big deck erected, which are now been removed, and that's where the Tiki Bar is going to go. So if you can kind of see that in the picture, that deck and bar is no longer there, but that's pretty much exactly where the Tiki Bar would go if you look at the color photograph I've given you. Also attached, most importantly, is the architect's schematic of the property, which most importantly shows some parking. It shows the existing floor space of the building, and then where the Tiki Bar is proposed. I'm sorry, it's a little dark. I think you could still make it out, though. The Tiki Bar's area with patio is a 16 by 24 area, which is 384 square feet. The parking, there is currently a paved parking area alongside this, right along the railroad side of the tracks, of the property. And what's proposed is 15 parking places. There is an existing garage on the property, by the way, and 2 spots will go inside. That would be for employees. And if necessary, there's some, space back in the corner for extra employee parking, but we can comfortably fit, 14 or 15 spots, off-street parking right on the property. In addition, Board, as the Board may be aware, Jackson Street in that area, given it's not a thoroughfare, it's a very wide street. There is plenty of area across the street. I'm going to submit to you, on the street, by the way, we also have been given a letter. It's my understanding that the west side, let me pull it out. The field is owned across the street by I believe by the city of Scranton. At least that's what the assessment records show.
Yeah, it's the Junior Invaders field right there.
Yes, thank you. The West Scranton Junior Invaders Youth Football Organization.
It's my neighborhood. I can see my roof from his...
If I may, I want to present the Board.
You can.
I'm just going to interrupt you for a second.
Sure.
Are we, Don and Dan, are we here just for the Tiki Bar or the bar itself?
Just
Just the expansion of the bar itself into the Tiki Bar.
Okay, so I mean, the parking has already been established with the prior use. So we're not really concerned about the parking here because we can't determine what that Tiki Bar is going to generate.
It's always been...
Okay. Okay. So what would the original parking requirement be for that bar then?
Okay. According to what we were submitted here, we have 32 seats inside and 30 seats outside. So it's a total of the new total will be 62 seats, which requires 16 off-street parking, and I think we have 15 depicted on the map.
I'm showing 12 on that map.
Plus the garage.
2 in the garage.
Right. So you have 14 altogether.
And 14 shown, and we could actually squeeze one more in the corner there, the upper right corner.
I'm only showing 12. I'm not...
2 at the garage.
Okay, with the
There's
garage.
2 in the existing.
So you got 12 showing.
12 showing,
Right, and
and
then
to the
two.
right is the,
Yep,
where it
okay.
says existing garage, there's two there. Yeah. I'm sorry that's not more clear.
Well, it's okay, I just want to be clarified, so. So he needs to pick up 4 spots, that we're saying? 2 spots?
2.
Okay.
I think, can you fit one right next to the existing garage?
Yeah, yes.
Looks like there's space for one there.
Yes, Dan, that's the area I said we could actually get one more in there, so it'd be 15.
What about that grassy knoll area outside the fence? Is that your property also?
yes.
That looks like it's plenty big for a
Yes,
spawn.
it is. And the way this was drawn, you can see the dotted line, that's our property line, so there's plenty of room there. I think that our architect was just being very conservative with setbacks and whatnot, listing them, so we're showing them all within the setbacks, but we actually can go beyond a little bit, than the setbacks. I mean, the railroad's on the one side, it shouldn't be an issue. We're staying all on our property at all times.
Do you want to get back to this letter?
Sure, thank you. So, as you can see, this letter was written by Mr. Tom Salemba. Tom provided this to my client today. It speaks for itself. I understand that this organization is under a valid lease with the city and has been for many years. And he's actually encouraged and very gracious in saying Mr. Zelinski would be able to use any part of their property, I think assuming it would never interfere with their use, but, I think it's primarily used for football now, no longer baseball, no longer Little League. And keep in mind, Board, that the Tiki Bar, of course, is very seasonal. We're only talking, the more clement times of the year. It will not be open in the winter. It's all open. It's not going to be enclosed. The hours of operation of my client's bar, tavern, will be only until 11 o'clock, maybe midnight on Friday and Saturday, but never any later. The Tiki Bar itself, even in the summer months, would never be open past 11 outside. So he has a very strict plan that he had to present to his lender to get his loan approval, and they approved it overwhelmingly.
Now, does he plan any live music out there, or just?
Nothing in the
Tape music?
form of bands. If any, he would have a guitar player or a singer, but it would be more in the early hours. It would never go past 11 o'clock.
And that's something
Because
that,
everything's shutting down at 11 anyway.
and that's something that would have to adhere to his liquor license as well with the LCB?
At 100%.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there anybody in the audience that'd like to give testimony in this case?
I'd like to see the parking, if it's at all possible, too.
If we could just swear you in real quick. If you could raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Name and address, please.
Carla Waltman, 129 South Dewey Avenue, Scranton. This property does not go right up to the railroad tracks. There is a right-of-way because there is a home right behind this property. There's a rear home back there that has a family with 3 children. So I'm not sure where all this parking is going to be because I didn't think this property was that wide. But I don't know exactly what exists on the side of that property. Maybe this is correct, but there is a roadway right next to the railroad tracks that is always being blocked by somebody from the football field. When they have the football games and things like that, they always complain about their driveway being blocked. But I would plead with you guys, I hope that this bar is successful, I really do. I'm your neighbor, I hope the best for you. I frequent the bar from time to time, but I would please consider the lives of the neighbors and the children. If an outside bar is allowed to operate, it would disturb the quiet and the peacefulness that currently exists in the area. The establishment really needs to remain indoors. It's always been indoors. I don't know of any problems as reps or when Larry owned it. Like, he even said that there's been, some issues, but I live on the street around the corner, so I don't live on that exact street. I live in his backyard. And I'm just concerned that all these people being on the outside is going to create a really bad noise situation. They're remodeling to be larger, so I understand that they are putting in more seating already to help with the success of the restaurant. I'm concerned about music, loud patrons out on the deck, foul language. There's children 2 doors down from him. 2 of the boys are on the spectrum for autism, and they also have a toddler who was born with some issues. There's people, like I said, the family with 3 kids right behind them. I have 2 kids. All this is just on our side of the railroad tracks. I don't even know what's going on the other side of the railroad tracks, which is in earshot of the company. Patrons coming and going all night, that's expected. It's never been complained. The moms at the bus stop never complained about that. But it is a dead-end street. There's really no adequate parking. If you add more and more people, I don't know what right it is to park on the Falcons. I really don't care, it's there, but I don't know if that's an ordinance allotment to allow a public business to park on city property as part of the ordinance or the variance. The football games that are there, we already have to deal with floodlights, loudspeakers, loud music, a parking nightmare. But it's for the kids, and it ends at a reasonable time. Understandable, we're okay. I'm okay with that. I'm the only one here as far as I know, but I'm okay with it. Parking sucks, but it's for the kids. I'm concerned about, they say they're going to stop at 11, they say they're going to stop till 12, but I think the law is 2. I can't do that. I can't, the peacefulness of that neighborhood will be shattered with an outside tiki bar. Good luck to him. If he wants to add a room back there, close it all in or something like that, that would be fine. But outdoors would be a nightmare.
So that there's no time that would make you happy as far as, up here, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm hearing it back there.
There's absolutely no time that would make you happy with having that tiki bar open in the back, like if they were to shut it down a little earlier?
This is an R1, this is residential. It'll be at the expense of the neighbors. That the music will be going, the people will be, partying. I'm all for partying, I'm okay with that, but not every night. Not 12 o'clock, not 11 o'clock, school nights. How are my kids gonna sleep? That's my only concern. Put a building.
How far is your backyard to this establishment?
48 plus 96, about 150, 160 feet. And, it would just, it would just be at the expense of the neighborhood.
What did you say your address was? On South Dewey, did you say? Over here?
129 South Dewey.
129?
Yeah.
I know you're talking about the parking with the West Invaders, because I have to take a detour, so it's to avoid it.
Yeah.
But actually, to be honest, I said it was my neighborhood, although I don't live within 250 feet. The music and the announcing from the football games is far louder than any band that I've ever been to being at the bar.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm sorry, I only know you as Jay-Z, can testify, maybe only having bands like on the weekends, not during the week, or if they're going to play inside, maybe you could specify or give her some more answers. You could go to the podium and be,
You need to swear him in.
yeah, and be sworn in too. Unless you know the answers, Attorney.
If you don't mind, I'm more than happy to let him respond. There was just a couple things I'd like to respond to first to the ma'am's questions or comments. So let's start with the home alongside in the back. That is not a roadway that runs alongside the railroad tracks. That is the railroad right-of-way. That is not a City of Scranton road. And honestly, through the research that I've done in doing his title work, that property behind him is a landlocked property, and really has no legal right to use the utility, or the railroad's property. That's number one. But that's not our issue, and we don't plan on allowing any parking there anyway. We can't. Secondly, with respect to, this is not Rep's Place. If the board were able to see, I was there today, you would not recognize it right now. It's been totally gutted and renovated, and he spent quite a bit of money on Peters Architects to have this redrawn, handicap accessible, et cetera. He wouldn't have got his permits had that not happened. His intention, he's a dad of 2 young boys. He is extremely sports orientated. His boys are extremely involved. Mr. Zielinski is a major contributor and supporter of Scranton youth, and one of his main goals in opening this place is to support the youth. His plan is to have the kids over for pizza and things like that. He's going to have his homemade family recipes available. He's hoping that this is going to be more of a family-oriented place. This will not be Rep's Place. And nothing against Rep's Place, because I love the corner local places myself, but that's not what he's moving away from that. And the noise issue. So as the board's aware, the Pennsylvania, he's licensed by the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board, and of course there are, as the board has already recognized, there's noise restrictions that he must abide by or he's going to be cited. The city of Scranton has its own noise and/or nuisance ordinance that is enforceable in the event that there's a problem. Liquor licensees are responsible to police their own premise at all times, and he plans to do that. Before I turn it over to Mr. Zielinski, I would just suggest that, that if the board can, under the ordinance, impose as a reasonable condition a time limitation on any outdoor entertainment or noise. So that could be something the board can consider. John?
On TV.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Name and address, please.
John Zielinski, 1437 Fellow Street, Scranton, PA, 18504.
Thank you.
I just have a silly, curious question. You live right across the street from the intermediate school?
West Scranton Middle School, yes.
Yeah, they have several school dances in there.
Yes.
Are you able to hear the music when they have their school dances?
Sometimes I am, yes, sometimes I do. They have the DJ
And they
out there and the music and everything, and I hear
And the kids
the DJ out there and playing, and everybody's out there. It's part for the kids. I mean, how are you gonna turn that down? It's all about the kids.
I would just, because you live about as close to the school as she does to the back of the bar that you're
Absolutely, there's
posing.
the kids coming out of there, a lot of noise and everything, but it's a part of life that you gotta deal with, and kids go to school, they're gonna be loud. I mean, you should hear the language sometimes with the kids coming out of school at that age too, with all due respect. I have two young boys, and I have like a stepdaughter too also. I'm talking 4th grade, 6th grade, and 9th. And those who have known me as Jay-Z, I've been running a family business for 18 years in the city of Scranton. And people who know me, I stress on family trips. I do not tolerate when any bull stuff going on. We run good trips, good times, and I want to take that mentality and turn it into the restaurant. I'm not opening a bar. I'm opening an extension of my business where I want to have families come, the youth, the leagues, the kids. Reps back in the day, everybody loved their wings. And everybody, please tell me, don't change the wing recipe. I said, we're not. The one thing we are going to take out is the non-smoking. Because right then, you cannot have kids come in if you have smoking. We want to be family-oriented. We want kids from the league to come over. Mr. Salumba from the leagues. I'm involved in the West Grant League. We want to have kids out there. Fundraisers are huge, especially for the youth sports. I'm a big part of that. I donate trips, I donate stuff, my time, coaching, anything I can do for the kids, especially now for the football leagues and stuff, because if the kids don't have this, they're going to be walking the streets, and it's going to be a mess. So if it's not for people to step up and do things for the children, okay, in our area, then kids, it's only going to make it worse. And as a coach, myself, and as a sponsor of the league, and I know Mr. Slum and all this stuff, since they canceled, they canceled the baseball league, they shrunk it. There's not many kids playing sports, so the Lackawanna County Little League over there, you have all that parking right across the street from me. And it's a known fact. Drug use, people partying over there, noise, and everything. Every time they go down there, they call the cops multiple times with people down there doing drug stuff, with kids around. And he is for this 100%, to have more vehicles around there, so there'd be less people, less kids to do this, because sometimes you can hear the kids yelling, fireworks going off and yelling and screaming over there and stuff like that. But if you have more people around, you're gonna deter that. Maybe you can give them something else to do better with their life, you know? I pledge, we're gonna run a nice place. We're gonna bring homemade recipes, we're keeping a wing recipe and everything there too, you know?
And I appreciate your testimony with the kids and everything, but I don't think the kids are a question here. I think her concern is the adults that will stay after the kids go home.
Okay.
And I do appreciate, I know you're involved in a lot, but the testimony on this is a tiki bar opening to, say, 12 o'clock, maybe later, maybe not later, maybe earlier. And at that point, we both know, I mean, I've been to tiki bars, it's adults at that time there.
Sure.
But I think this woman's concern is the noise that's going to be created by the adults, the traffic generated at that time of night going home. So my focus is on the tiki bar. And what are your hours? I'm going to ask you, because you're the owner.
Our hours are opening at 4 o'clock. Monday, we're going to be open 7 days a week from 4 o'clock on. Lunch, we're planning on opening a lunch on Friday, Saturday and Sunday for lunch. We are open until like 11 o'clock, and that's it. We're shutting down. I do not want to be, anything after 11, 12 o'clock, you're only asking for trouble, and I don't want that. We are going to be strict on that. Because, and face it, especially with people drinking and everything like that, more people going out to eat and spend money on food and stuff and drink, because a lot of people with the DUIs out there and all that other stuff, they're not sitting there drinking as much. So you have to have the food to sustain the business. So that's why we're going to have a strong kitchen with the food and stuff there.
Are you going to have a manager running this, or are you going to run it, Tony?
I have a manager, Sam.
Okay, so if this woman has a problem, her or the neighbors, and they contact Sandy, are they going to, I'm sorry?
Sam.
Sam, I apologize, Sam. Are they going to have a positive response?
Absolutely, positive response.
That's what I want to hear. I mean,
Absolutely.
And because far too many bars or restaurants, you know what happens, go by and they just hang up on you. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear your problem when you live next door to them or a block away.
I'm sorry, were you
Yeah,
done?
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Where she lives, which is obviously on the right, if you're looking at the bar, it's on the right side. Is that correct?
Where I live?
Yes.
Down the street around the corner.
Okay.
Yeah, the bar is like this, I'm this way.
Okay. So you're not abutting the property.
There's only one property between my properties and...
Is there fencing and stuff around that property or anything like that?
There will be. There's a chain link fence along the railroad right-of-way. There's a fence around the rear of the property. There's a fence on the right-hand side of the property.
What kind of
The tiki
fence?
bar area will be fenced from the parking lot. There'll be a fence there, so you can only access it from the inside.
I mean, I'm not saying you're going to get approved, but any kind of noise barrier you can put from the neighbor's property it's going to help you with complaints. I mean, any kind of outdoor noise, you're going to get complaints.
How about lighting in that area? Is it going to be mounted from above, shining down, or is it going to just be the tiki torch himself?
No,
and
it's
small
like
lighting?
tiki torches and lights there. Matter of fact, there is a big street light there that we're not gonna, that's really bright. We're disconnecting that because that's really too bright there.
Dan, what is the ordinance for noise as far as outside? Is there anything for live music or anything like that?
It's under Article 5 of our
Yeah,
ordinance.
and actually, Mr. Chairman, with the license from the Liquor Control Board, their standards are much more stricter than ours. Their standard is no music or loudspeaker could be heard off the property. And the Liquor Control Board is very strict with that. And how they measure it is they come and they stand at your property line. If they can hear music, you're in violation. And I know that because we've had, in the last few weeks, I've gotten calls from a couple of bar owners that have been cited that felt that it was unfair. But but that's the Liquor Control Board law.
I mean, I don't know if you know this, does that go as voices also too, or is it?
Well, that's music or a loudspeaker.
Okay.
I'm not sure how it applies to other noise or voices.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Mr. King is 100% accurate. It would only cover amplified music, I think is the language in the liquor code. However, the other audible noises, talking, yelling, screaming, I believe would be covered under the city ordinance. But he's right, it is much more strict under the Liquor Control Board than the city.
Now, 127 South Dewey, that's that big white with the red shutters. So there's a huge parking lot right there. Are you concerned people are going to use that parking lot? Because, I mean, when I drive by there, there's
He
never...
already asked us if he could use the parking lot, so I guess he's going to have much bigger parties than you think he's going to have. And we said no, because we don't want, like, our neighbors are in bed at 9 o'clock at night. My husband goes to bed at 5:45. Not that the world has to stop at 5:45 for my husband, but he's a truck driver. He gets up at 12:45 in the morning. So I have huge concerns, but most of my biggest concerns are for my children. And I didn't bring up the concern of the foul language. You get a really good Journey song or whatever, Led Zeppelin or something, you're going to have a whole tiki bar full of people singing at the top of their lungs. And I have rights to quality of life. Enclose it. If you have the square footage to put up a tiki bar, put some walls on it, put some insulation on it, and be a good neighbor. I hope the restaurant's great, but I don't want to have to suffer for a business owner.
It doesn't sound like he wants to be it doesn't sound like he wants to be a bad business owner. I'm pretty sure he's not.
At 11 o'clock at night, like if my kids are trying to go to sleep at 9 o'clock, like my daughter's 11, if she's trying to go to school, go to sleep, and the bar is going, believe me, at that dead of the night, you can hear everything. You can hear everything.
Would you be willing to have like the hours, is it going to be open during the weekdays, the patio?
The patio?
Yes.
Yes.
Will there be music?
No. We're gonna have maybe like an acoustic guitar, you know, on the weekend, and the speaker will be face the other way, so they won't even hear. You stand behind the speaker, you won't hear nothing. You know what I mean? So as far as the music goes, that's not gonna be an issue there. You know, we'll point that a different way. You know what I mean? I'm not here to do anything wrong. We're gonna do a nice job. We're gonna be good to the community, and we're gonna do a nice job. You know?
John, is there
We'll put the
anything,
speaker that way if we have to, you know? There's no,
is there anything that you could do at your fence line? Say, go up so high, all that music and all that noise will divert upward before it'll divert left and right.
It could
Now,
only be 6 foot, that's the max.
Right, but what I'm saying is, can you do anything in that regards to possibly deaden the sound at that end of your property? I mean, if this guy next door, who's only 20 feet away, don't have an issue with it, and somebody 150 feet away has an issue with it, I'm sure that there's something that you could do to address, to deaden that from traveling that direction.
yeah. As far as, we've been doing events and stuff like that, as far, if we're not have the speaker turn on their house, you turn it the other way, and you stand behind the speaker, you don't even hear the music going on if it compared to in front and back of it compared to the front of it. So, and I know the next door neighbor, Jimmy Insolin, who I went to high school with, to take care of their mom there and helping them out, and she's looking forward to coming over. She says, listen to some music and relaxing.
If I could, I can say with certainty that he would do whatever he would need to do, Mr. Palmetessa, within reason. I would only ask, I want to believe that there's a height limitation on fences.
Right.
And I, at this time, I don't know what that is, so I don't know if that would be even doable.
Right.
He has just indicated, you want to tell?
Yeah, absolutely. 10 o'clock at night, on a Friday or Saturday night, they'll be done with music. I'm not investing my livelihood and my business in here for a nuisance bar. We're not going to be a problem to any neighbors there. I guarantee you that. We're going to do a great job. okay?
And you
if
said
we-
10 o'clock on the
10
weekends.
No, 10
And-
o'clock at night, I'm saying.
and-
We'll show any kind of
What about weekdays? What about weekdays?
weekdays, or no, weekends, I'm sorry. what did you say?
Weekdays, like,
Weekdays, if we have any, we won't have any music on after 10 o'clock. Outside, yeah, absolutely. That's a fair time.
does that work at all for you, or?
If I hear it on my property, I'll be back.
Well, I mean, you won't be back to us, but you will be calling the city to definitely complain. I mean, that's,
I'm saying 10, well, I'm trying to be happy. Is 10 o'clock, and it's a fair.
But I don't know. I just don't want to have to suffer for all the loud people. Not just music, because I can understand you can turn those speakers and that'll help. But
Trees, tree line.
I just think it's in the wrong zoning for an outside tiki bar.
Now, that Reps has been Reps has been there for years and years.
Decades.
I just found out it existed, and I've lived in my house for
Great
15
wings.
years.
I'm glad
Yeah.
you're not changing the recipe. Great wings. But they've
So,
always been an inside bar, always. Well, I've said what I had to say. If you don't mind, I'll go sit down.
thank
But
you.
I have
Thank
my
you.
concerns.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So you said 10 o'clock for music on the weekends. Did you say no music during the weekdays? I didn't hear what you said on
I
that.
don't plan on having any kind of live music during the week at all, no. I don't have any
Okay,
plans.
if you do, could we make it a condition that it wouldn't be after 9
Maybe a
o'clock?
holiday or something, or night, I mean.
9 o'clock weekdays, if possible?
That's fine, from like 6 to 9 or something.
Can we make a condition of 9 and 10 o'clock?
It's totally reasonable, absolutely.
Now, let me just ask you, there's a couple of, there's you, then there's two houses, and then there's the corner where there was a diner there for years and years and years, which was just, I don't know what its hours were, but compared to that, like as a restaurant, is that a pretty close comparison as to what you, family-wise? You said you want to keep it family-oriented.
We're gonna be open around like 12, for.
Because, I mean, there was a diner there, and there was a bar there, so
It was
it's,
more of a breakfast place. I used to eat there myself all the time. We used to go there for breakfast, We're not gonna be open for breakfast, no.
but I'm just trying to say that there have been businesses in the area before.
Oh, yes, absolutely. There's a lot of people that go in there all the time.
Is there anybody else in the audience that wants to give testimony on this? Your neighbors that are right to the right, did you go and talk to your neighbors at all that are around the business?
Yes, I did.
What was the feedback from?
I went to school with Mr. Jim Inslin.
Next door.
Next door to the property there. Went over and introduced her. Their mom's still, in the same situation I'm in. Their dad passed away, and they take care of their mom. She's in her 80s. And, a matter of fact, I actually cut up the firewood for them, helped them out, and clear some of the stuff off for them and everything there too,
I don't know if it was mentioned, but the property in the rear, the one that the lady had mentioned, is a tenant-occupied property. It's not owner-occupied, and I think
I don't think that has a bearing, though.
No, but-
She lives there, she occupies that building, so, I mean, she has the right
Yes,
to approve it or go against it, so.
absolutely.
I'm going to stress my concern right now. My concern is that we're taking this and putting it in an R1A zone, and we're changing the complexion of that R1A zone. If it was a bar, again, like it was in the past, maybe I wouldn't have the reservations that I have, but now we're adding an addition to the outside of the area, which does have an adverse effect on the neighbors. I mean, whether we shut the music down at 9 or we shut down at 10, it's still a new atmosphere that's being created, and that's what I'm trying to work through here, on what we can do with that. And I know you've been thinking more than willing to lower the hours down and stuff like that, but I just get concerned we start taking R1A zones and 1A zones and changing them, and that's what's being asked to do with this variance right here.
I mean, before we vote, I'd like to put in the restriction of the hours. Music weekdays was 9 and 10 o'clock on the weekends. How about shutdown hours? I'd like to get those in on here so we can stick by whatever hours you were thinking about shutting down.
You mean for the Tiki Bar, Mr. Walsh?
Correct.
Okay, yes, absolutely.
Well, what were the hours? What were you thinking would be weekdays and weekends? Just for the Tiki Bar itself.
We're going to shut it down around 10 o'clock, wrap it up around, like, by 10:30, 11 o'clock, we'll clear everybody out of there.
Okay. Weekdays would be the same?
Weekdays, I don't really foresee a lot more people there during the week, you know, we want people to go in there, eat from like 4 to 8, maybe like 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock.
7 days.
Could we put 10 o'clock in there, Dan, please?
11 on the weekend and 10 on the weekdays?
Correct.
Yeah.
And the music is in there, right, Dan, for 9 and 10?
The music would be 9 and 10, yep.
I'll make a motion with those restrictions, or stipulations, whatever.
Second.
Ms. Newcomb?
Yes.
Mr. Palmetessa?
Yes.
Mr. Marks?
Yes.
Mr. Gattens? No. Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Vote of 4 to 1, you've been approved.
Good luck.
Thank you, Board.
We're going to take a 10-minute recess before this next one.